Well, absolutely. This was a very powerful earthquake, according to authorities. It wasn't an aftershock, but an earthquake triggered by the initial earthquake in the early hours of this morning. That comes on top of the hundreds of aftershocks that continue to rattle the whole of the region in southern Turkey. And this is just adding to the rescue efforts, rescue workers' nightmare problems that they are facing. They're trying to dig into the remains of these collapsed buildings, of which there are at least over 2,000, possibly even more, to find survivors that they hope are trapped deep into the rubble. And this comes at a time when the authorities are still trying to grapple and get a handle on the magnitude of the problem. Many areas that have been close to the epicenter of this very powerful earthquake, there's still very little news other than videos, a few videos that we've seen of whole streets of collapsed apartment blocks. And this is the scale of the problem that is facing Turkey rescue workers. And on top of that, it is compounded by the ongoing threat of further earthquakes and aftershocks.
You mentioned the rescue workers
leaving a trail of devastation, with members of Syria's opposition civil defense force, also known as the White Helmets, claiming many rebel-held areas in the northwest of the country are in a state of catastrophe.
Our teams responded to all the sites and the buildings, and still now many families now are under the rubble. Our teams trying to save them, trying to save the people, to save all the people from under the rubble with all capabilities. But it's very difficult task for us. We need help. We need the international community to do something to help us, to support us.
And there is some hope of that, with international support now on its way, and moments like this providing some joy for rescuers, raising expectations that more may be found alive. Entire sections of cities, with hundreds of buildings collapsing, as people were still asleep in their homes. There are my sister and her 3 children. Right now there are 7 members of our family under the debris. Authorities in Turkey say as many as 10 provinces have been affected. This video posted online giving a sense of the damage caused in the city of Kahramanmaraş. Rescuers now facing a daunting task in the search for survivors. Their efforts impacted by the sheer size of the rubble piles and the added danger of falling debris and even further collapses. A total of 2,786 search and rescue staff are on duty, and that number is increasing every second. It takes some time for our teams from other provinces to arrive due to the adverse weather conditions, but they will all be in the field.
First earthquake, 7.8 magnitude. We are now hearing, Savannah, of another earthquake in the same area, 7.6 magnitude, and earth and aftershocks in cities in Iraq. And Savannah, the numbers are stunning. Almost 3,000 buildings have collapsed. More than 1,300 people have been killed, and that number inevitably will rise. Thousands have been injured, and thousands, Savannah, are now on their way to try and take part in this desperate rescue operation. Whole buildings collapsing from the earthquake's power. Unable to stand against this quake, almost 8 on the Richter scale. The morning light revealing devastation and wreckage. A toddler in Syria, bloody but conscious, pulled from the rubble. And other survivors taken from collapsed buildings, lucky to be alive. 3 huge tremors snapping streetlights and sending car alarms wailing. The moment put it on security camera footage. This is one of the region's worst quakes in decades, striking while people slept just after 4 a.m. The quake hitting a huge area of southern Turkey and northern Syria, an area already war-torn with hundreds of refugees. The tremors felt as far as Beirut, Jerusalem and Gaza. In northern Syria, they are searching for survivors in opposition-held territory. Hospitals there already overwhelmed with the injured.
We need help. We need the international community to do something to help us, to support us.
Turkey's President Erdogan said rescue workers will be joined by troops to search for survivors, but they have a vast area to cover. Those searching calling for silence as they try and listen for trapped survivors. This rescuer asking someone trapped, "What colour are you wearing? Are you wearing pink?" A frantic rush to find those caught in the rubble. The White House offering to provide any and all assistance to Turkey, although the statement left out any reference to the US working directly with Syria.
Very long region that's impacted by very, very strong shaking, and this earthquake, more than 15 million people experienced very strong to severe shaking.
Family, everyone desperately digging, in some cases by hand, looking for any signs of life of friends or family who may be inside.
A tragedy unfolding, of course, in Turkey and Susanna across the border in Syria as well.
In offshore areas beneath the sea, they can trigger sometimes a bigger than expected tsunami. But to have this, a second large earthquake at such shallow depth beneath an area with vulnerable buildings where people are trying to carry out rescue operations, it's completely devastating. So I don't think I've ever seen such a strong impact of two similar sized earthquakes close to each other.
How do they compare to previous earthquakes in Turkey?
Certainly, Turkey is no stranger to earthquakes. It sits on some sort of plate boundary zones where tectonic plates are sort of colliding with each other or grinded alongside each other. So Arabia is ploughing northwards into Europe and Asia, which is causing sort of Turkey to escape westwards. And so these faults are where these earthquakes, these large earthquakes in Turkey happen. So generally, in the past, most large earthquakes in Turkey have been on the northern part of the country, along what we call the northern Anatolian fault, so sort of east of Istanbul. There was a large earthquake there in 1999, which killed several thousands of people, and that was a much smaller earthquake. That was only a magnitude 7. But this region of southeastern Turkey, close to the Syria border, there's never been such a large earthquake that's been recorded with our dense sort of seismometer monitoring system. So there hasn't been such a large earthquake going back to sort of over a century ago. But if you do look in sort of historical records, there you can see people have documented something like large earthquakes of maybe similar size to today, pre-1900s, so going back sort of centuries ago.
We're seeing some images of quite extraordinary destruction here. Is there anything that can be done to mitigate the impact of future earthquakes in the region?
We have sort of a saying in seismology sometimes, which we use, and we say earthquakes don't kill people, buildings do. So generally, if you're outside during a large earthquake, away from buildings and fallen masonry, you're probably going to be fairly safe. But it's people being trapped in rubble, being hit by falling objects, which we've sadly seen today. So I think the key really is to make sure those buildings can withstand the level of shaking in today's earthquake. And that can be ensuring that new buildings are built to withstand those levels of shaking, but also you can also do retrofitting of existing buildings. That costs money. Sometimes corners can be cut in new building developments, and it's an absolute tragedy when that happens.
Stephen Hicks from University College London, thank you so much for your time.